Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about our first more widespread snowstorm of the season with multiple cold shots coming in. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. Good morning everyone. This is your December the 2nd update, and what we're taking a look at here this morning is the overall jet stream and on the North American view, and you can see where all the cold air is. It's up in Canada, it's up in Alaska, and look, we've got the block, and underneath it, we're seeing numerous record high temperatures across the country today. In fact, we'll go over all that, but man, it's pretty impressive for this time of year to see these 20 and 30 degrees above average temperature anomalies, and it's all based on this what they call zonal flow, and this air coming off the Pacific. That's a warm air, and the jet stream lifting all the way to Canada, it's allowing those higher temperatures to reach all the way into the Canadian border. So in fact, let's take a look at some of the potential records today. In fact, we could be looking at 61 potential record high temperatures today for your December the 2nd. That is incredible stuff. You can see widespread 80s, if not 80s, everywhere that's circled is expecting a record high temperature today. And you can see all the way to Montana. We're talking 66 yesterday, and Montana, they reached record high temperatures like in the morning time. That's how impressive this heat wave is for December standards, with those 20 and 30, if not almost 35 degrees above average temperatures reaching all the way to the Canadian border. But we've got help on the way with several cold shots, and that's not saying much since we're literally so high right now. Some of these cold shots will actually just bring us back to normal, but there's several one that's becoming this week. We can see by the weekend, this jet stream finally dips. It finally dips, and it's allowing some of that colder Arctic air to, penetrate southward. It'll get modified as it pushes, further southward. But we do have a low pressure system that's developing off here south of Texas. That's actually going to be in some rain and instability back into Texas by the time we get into Saturday. And I think it really starts to get its act together on Saturday night into a portion, say, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But this morning, you can take a look at the overall precipitational water value index. By the time we get into that Saturday night time frame, you can see the moisture's coming back. We've got dense fog advisories for South Texas creeping in south of Dallas today, this morning. So that's an indication of some of the moisture is going to be coming back in the picture. It's been fairly dry in this area, so we've got indications of the moisture coming back. And so yes, by the time we get into that Saturday, going into Saturday night time frame, all the layers of the atmosphere are going to be saturated, and it's going to tap into some of these 1 inch, potentially 1.5 inch rainfall potential rain rates as a weak disturbance moves through the area. That's going to create the lift. And we could looking at some brief heavy rain into portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm not really expecting anything severe for the Metroplex, but definitely going to be like an overnight event for you guys. And as this moves through into East Texas, going into places like Shreveport and to Little Rock, we could be talking some severe weather actually by then, as that has a little bit more instability. So yeah, so as we get into that Sunday night, Monday time frame, I am looking at some of these storms do turn severe with some 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. Some of the smaller hail could be going into some quarter-size type hail in this type of environment. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of instability coming back in the picture. It's not out of the question this time of year you do get severe weather with, so warm that we've been as of late. So as we do have that weak cold front that's going to be coming in on, Sunday night, that's going to set the stage for a little bit more, active weather, severe weather going into East Texas. Places like Shreveport, places like Little Rock could be under the gun to seeing some of those strong storms turn severe at times with some higher wind gust for that region. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But yeah, back behind it, we've got that first initial blast of cooler air that's going to sink all the way down into places like Houston. You can see where the demarcation line is, where that cold front's going to be by the time we go into Monday, Monday afternoon, and back behind it, yeah, much colder air is going to be funneling in. So we're not talking 70s or 80s anymore. We're going to be talking temperatures closer to average, actually. It's going to take a 20-degree drop from a cold front to bring you to a high temperature on Monday for 58 degrees in Dallas. And yeah, it sounds chilly, and it is, but it's typically where you should be this time of year. I mean, we've been so warm, you don't really know what average is anymore. That's what we should be at 58 degrees in North Texas by the time we get into December 6th timeframe. And you can see we're not talking, 60s or 70s all the way to the North Dakota border. Now we've got some 20s coming back in the picture, some 30s. So you can see the initial surge, a little bit colder air going to be finally entering the picture as we go into next week. But you may ask yourself, hey, what is actually normal? So I talk about all these temperatures all the times with, above average, below average, but hey, what's actually normal? So this is what's normal is for December 6th standards. And yeah, like I mentioned, 59 degrees, it's estimated to 58 in Dallas. That's about average where you should be this time of year. Closer to 50 in Oklahoma, 45, say in Missouri. We go up into portions of Colorado. We've got 30s up in the mountains. Get closer, obviously further north, going into Wyoming, 30s, and then 30s for these for high temperatures, right? I mean, so when you're getting 60s and 65s this time of year, that's some crazy stuff. That's nuts, right? I mean, so elevated for this time of year, and then where we're supposed to be in the 20s, if not almost lower 20s up here. Yeah, it's really hot today. So yeah, this is that cold front, that at least that first initial cold front is really going to just knock you down to average. But we do have a stronger front, but back behind that, it's going to be a little bit lower as we get deeper into the week. So but let's take a look at your overall low temperatures, typically for this time of year for that December 6th standard. So yeah, we're talking almost single digits by the time we get into December 6th. I mean, 30s down to the south, 20s for much of Missouri into Ohio. So that is average, right? So when you're seeing some of these anomalies or some of these reds that show up, say, oh, that's above average, and say, hey, that's hot. Well, technically it's not, right? I mean, you could still have above average temperatures and still actually get snowfall, because now we're in December. We're in the winter months where it's supposed to be cold. And yeah, so even if it's above average in some areas, you can still technically get snowfall in that type of atmosphere. So let's take a look at the overall snow depth, because obviously we've been in a snow drought. It's not really snowed that much this year. And here's what's on the ground right now. We're talking less than 10% of the country actually has snowfall on the ground for the United States. Ultimately, because we're just been so warm. So as this cold air drops from Alaska and Canada, where it's been so cold, it's going to be modifying, right? Because the ground is warm. It's been so warm, so it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to break down the levels of the atmosphere and really get a good solid snowpack before we get some sort of like sustained cold on the table. So let's take a look at the jet stream by the time we get into Tuesday, December the 7th. Man, it's really starting to buckle, right? We got that second surge of colder air enter the picture as it sinks south. Now we're going to be setting the stage for places that can start getting snowfall where you really haven't seen any this year. So I'm thinking places like Denver, places like Illinois, Ohio. Yeah, you guys are going to get in the action this week with some snowfall that's going to be on the table coming up, especially by midweek. So let's go over that. So as we get into that Tuesday time frame, yeah, we can take a look at the surface map where that 540 line creeps all the way into Kentucky, right? So now we're talking, hey, it's potentially cold enough where if we got some moisture around, it could actually snow, right? And I think that's what's going to happen as we make that transition into Tuesday, as that another colder surge plunges from Canada, and it's going to be able to create that lift and that instability. And yeah, we could be talking, your first snowfall of the season in places like Denver, incredibly. But yeah, it's a little bit more promising, and we'll go over some of the Ensemble members to show you this. But yes, as we get into Tuesday, going into Tuesday night, it even looks a little bit more promising as some of the heavier snowfall will start to maybe creep into the area, not just in places like Wisconsin where you've seen the snow as of late, but places like Chicago, central Illinois, maybe even southern Illinois, we're even into Indiana, where I know you really haven't seen any snow, and a good chunk of Ohio really hasn't seen any snow. So I do think you're going to have some snow opportunities on the table by the time we get into that Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe of next week. And look at the temperatures by the time we get into that Tuesday morning with that second surge of Arctic air. We've got widespread negative below zero temperatures. We're talking 20 and 30 below up in Canada. So that's some cold stuff, right? And so a piece of that Arctic air is going to filter south, and some of those negative values are going to be creeping into our northern states of Montana, into the Dakotas, into Minnesota, into Wisconsin's not out of the question. Could be waking up to below zero temperatures by the time we get into Tuesday morning. Even portions of Iowa, yeah, widespread 20s, if not some portions of teens, maybe 8 degrees in Chicago, right? So this is definitely probably the coldest shot of the season coming for next week. So it's going to be plenty cold enough to snow. And then as that system continues to wind through, yeah, we could be looking at some light to moderate snow coming into the picture, into Ohio, creeping into Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh hasn't seen any snow. I think that's going to be taking place by the time we get into that Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. And to the south, as that system comes across, if you've got some severe weather, possibly in East Texas and Arkansas, we could be looking at some of these storms into Dixie Alley area, into portions of the southeast. Could also be severe because you're not really going to be tapping into some of that even colder air. So you're going to be on the warm side. We're in the warm sector. You're still going to creep in the mid latitudes. Some of that colder air filtering in the mid latitudes. That's going to create the instability, and that's going to create some possibly severe weather by the time we get into that Wednesday timeframe. So yes, not only will you get the rain in this area, but some of these could be on the severe side, as we get into that Wednesday timeframe. And so as we creep into the afternoon on Wednesday, I think the snow just continues into places like Pennsylvania, into pretty much all of New York. I think even New York City tries to get into the action. You've seen some flurries, but I'm thinking at least a dusting or an inch or two into New York City by the time we get into that Wednesday timeframe. And like I mentioned, we'll go over some of the Ensemble members, places like Connecticut, right? You've been asking me, like, hey, when am I going to get my first snowfall? I think you missed out on the 4th through 6th system, but I don't think you missed out on the 7th and 8th system. And I think that's going to be finally breaking the snow drought for you guys. So, and as this continues going into Wednesday night, I think it kind of winds down. It starts to go up to coast, places like Boston, probably some of that transferring into snow for your area. That will go up into Maine. So let's take a look at some of the Ensemble members and kind of break this down. Here is the EPS guidance. So this is basically the Euro model is comprised of 51 different members, right? And so down here and how you kind of read this chart, here's the graph down here below from December 1st all the way through actually January the 11th. And here it is in inches. And you have these 51 different Ensemble members to kind of have a guidance and see if it's going to snow or not. Typically my threshold is about 40% of the Ensemble members have to show some sort of snow for it to even snow, right? Obviously, if you got more than that, it's a greater probability. But if it's less than 40%, the odds are not very great that it's going to happen. But yeah, look at Denver. By the time we get into that 7th and 8th time frame, it's got more than 40% showing that, hey, it's a snowfall possibility. Wait, maybe not much, but at least maybe an inch or two could finally break the snow drought into places into Denver. So, and as you can see, obviously, as we get deeper into December, especially in January, it's pretty much widespread on the table. We're talking multi-inch snows by then, obviously. I mean, they usually get a lot of snow in places like Denver. So now let's take a look at Chicago, right? Hadn't really seen much snow so far this year. So here's the Ensemble member guidance. They actually could pick up a dusting or two with that 4th through 6th system, but even a greater probability as we go into that 7th and 8th system, even more members showing not just an inch or two, but possibly 2 or 3 inches in the Chicago area is not out of the question. Again, this is more of a conservative type view. So this really breaks down the operational guidance and puts it into the ensemble member guidance, kind of shows you what the probabilities are. So it's a greater probability it's going to snow into Chicago. So let me take a look at places like Columbus, Ohio, right? You haven't really seen much snow, and by the time we get in that 7th and 8th time frame, it's got at least probably minimal 40% of the members showing at least maybe 2 or 3 inches potentially on the table. More probability of a 1 or 2 inch, but yeah, 2 or 3 inch. Some of the more bullish ones obviously go to 7 to 8. It's obviously a lot less likely for that to happen because only 1 or 2 members actually show that. So it's a little bit more probability and more guaranteed it's going to snow 1 or 2 inches in places like Columbus, Ohio. So let's go into Pittsburgh. Going into Pittsburgh, look, you might get some with that 4th through 6th system. But yes, it's more likely with that 7th or 8th system as more members, not just showing the grays, but it's showing the blues of maybe 2 to 3 inches is a pretty good bet. You're going to get 2 or 3 inches in Pittsburgh on that 7th and 8th time frame. Yeah, some members show a little bit more, right? So as we go into Central Park, New York City, let's go take a look at that. Man, look at that. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Some of them actually show up to several inches of snow, right? Most of them put a dusting to an inch. But yes, there are some members, even, 7 or 8 members show multi-inch snows. This is not out of the question, and even a lot more rarity if you even, get the purples. Obviously, there's only 2 of those, so the odds of that happening are not very good. So let's go into Boston, right? So Boston really haven't seen much snow. Man, look at that. I mean, that's a lot of members on the table showing that even that 4th through that 8th time frame. So you got even a pretty good probability you're going to see some snow in the Boston area next week. So let's take a look at the overall rainfall, how this is going to play out for the rest of the country. And, again, this is the operational guidance. This is the latest run. But this is the atmospheric river that continues for places in the Northwest. But it's going to be high and dry for places into California. Unfortunately, that continues for the desert Southwest. I do think this is going to be a little bit more bullish going into Dallas. So I'm expecting some places, isolated places, maybe 40% coverage in Dallas, but some places could get an inch and a half with that system on Saturday night going into Sunday morning. Going into Oklahoma City and points eastward, but especially a little bit higher totals as we go into Arkansas, Louisiana, portions of Mississippi and Alabama, and into Tennessee, going into Kentucky, going into the Ohio Valley. Yeah, most of that's going to be actually in the form of snow. But after this, we do have a little bit more greater probability. We could be talking some rain coming back in the picture for the desert Southwest. So you probably get into the action. This is beyond this time scale, but the time we get into that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next weekend, yeah, you get a little bit more higher probability of rain trying to come back in the picture for your area. So let's take a look at the overall EPS guidance of those snowfall totals. Again, this is a little bit more that conservative view, but showing you just a more probability guidance of what it might occur. Yeah, could get a dusting, not out of the question. Maybe in the panhandle of Texas, maybe a dusting in the Missouri. This is not something that's going to stick on the ground, but it might fly in the sky. And I think you finally get some snow in Denver. But yeah, a couple inches. This is exactly what the ensemble member guidance was actually showing, and been a little bit more greater probability for it to happen. Obviously, as you go further north, a good 5 to 7 inch swath in northern Minnesota, northern, Wisconsin, pretty much all of Michigan gets in the action. Places like Detroit could be picking up 2 to 4 inches from this particular snow event. But yeah, 2 or 3 inches in Pittsburgh. That is more of a guaranteed likely for it to happen. Yeah, you could get a little bit higher totals. But as it looks like right now, 2 to 3 inches potentially on the table for Pittsburgh. Places like New York City, maybe an inch or 2, not out of the question. Boston, maybe an inch or 2. Connecticut, your first snowfall of the season. So yeah, places has not really seen much snow, I think finally gets in to some of the snow. And look at the blend from the National Weather Service. This is also kind of a combined view of all the models. So again, this is a little bit more conservative view, exactly what happened. It still actually picks up because some of the GFS runs actually has some snow in Texas. Some of the Canadian runs and some of the European runs have. But if you overall mix them together, yeah, it's still showing you could get a dusting into the Texas Panhandle, places into portions of the Oklahoma Panhandle, places into Missouri's not out of the question, could get a dusting from this particular system, but several more guaranteed, more probability into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio with 1 to 2, maybe 2 to 3 inches is more likely into those areas. Pittsburgh's again, so that's combined with the EPS and the blend of the models. And like I mentioned, beyond that time frame, as you go into Friday into next weekend, yeah, we could be looking at, say, above average rains actually coming back for Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, portions of western Colorado. I know you've been dry out there, guys, so you got some rain coming back in the picture by that time frame. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you for and after the storm.